Hare Krishna. Thank you for your gracious welcome. I am feeling especially blessed today. On my arrival in the United Kingdom, first program is with the leaders of Prabhupada's Society in London. I do not deserve to be here, but I'm here anyway, so I will speak something. In Krishna consciousness, our eternal identity is servant. Naham vipro nacha narapatir napi vaishno nishudro. Lord Chaitanya, Krishna, who teaches us by his example how to be devotee, he was in the highest position in every sense. He was Brahman, the highest of the Varnas. He was Sannyas, the highest of ashrams. And he was Nimai Pandit, the greatest of scholars. Now in today's world, fame and prestige is given to people who are great in the eyes of the world. Yes, politicians, Hollywood or Bollywood. What is it in London? London Wood, I don't know. Huh? Yeah, to be an entertainer, a great singer, or a great actor or actress, or a great athlete. In India, the cricketers are such. Whatever they do, millions of people will do. Yadyaracharati shrestha. So leaders of society are very much people who have influence over others. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Brahman, he was sannyasi, he was also the greatest scholar on the planet. He defeated the Keshava Kashmiri, he defeated Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he defeated Prakashananda Saraswati. And in those days in India, people didn't care about singers or dancers, or television stars or entertainers. They didn't even care about athletes. If you put all those things together at that time, you were great if you were a scholar who could defeat others in debate. So he had everything. Power, prestige, high birth, incredible physical beauty. But yet, he identified himself as the servant of the servant of the servant. So leadership in Krishna consciousness means one who is actually most dedicated to the principle of service to others. In the material sense, leaders are all often people who exploit others, who are dictators, who are powerful, exploiting wealth, giving directions, massive egos. But this has absolutely nothing to do with spiritual life. Spiritual life is about submitting oneself before God, submitting oneself as the servant of every living being. And when we take that role, we are actual, proper leaders. And it is a great responsibility. Prabhupada was that example. On Jaladuta, he declared himself to be an insignificant beggar. He declared himself to have no devotion and no knowledge. He was simply submitting himself to Krishna. We can open some windows because it's hard enough sitting through my lecture without what to speak of without air. And Prabhupada was a person who took such responsibility in his service. The weight of the responsibility of his Guru Maharaj's order. He felt the weight of the expectations of our whole parampara. And in fulfilling the prophecy of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, that the holy name of Krishna would be chanted in every town and village throughout this planet. Yes, when Prabhupada was just a young man in his early 20s, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave him this order. He was just married. He just had his first child. Now those of you who are in Grihastha Ashram, you know what it's like at that time of life, when you're just married and you just have your first child. So many expectations. So many solutions to solve. Creating stability and security in the future. But he was given the order. Take this message of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and throughout the world teach it in the English language. Now Prabhupada had great faith, but it wasn't just his faith. Because so many of his godbrothers and so many other Gaudiya Vaishnavas also understood that order. And they had faith. But Prabhupada also, he showed his devotion by taking serious personal responsibility to execute the order, even at the cost of inconvenience or death. He made his priorities. And Srila Prabhupada told us that you make spiritual advancement according to the responsibilities you take on behalf of Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada gave his disciples such immense responsibilities. He was taking new men and women who had just been chanting, and there wasn't even books. Just last week I was with our Shyam Sundar Prabhu, godbrother. We were together for about 2 weeks in California, preaching in the southern parts together. Just imagine, he never even heard the name Krishna before. Never even heard the name Krishna. Didn't know anything about bhakti. Taking drugs, had a girlfriend, and a dog named Ralph. And he met Prabhupada. And at that time there was no books, except Prabhupada's, the original Srimad Bhagavatam volumes that he brought on Jaladuta with him. And they were hard to get. There was no Back to Godhead. There was no temples. a couple devotees, and it was them. There was no senior devotees except Prabhupada. Think of what we have and what they had. And yet, they were just devotees for a few weeks. And Prabhupada was giving them responsibilities. And within a couple months, they were starting Radhanath festivals, they were building chariots, they were carving deities, they were preaching, they were setting up programs, prasad distribution. They were not even devotees for not even a year. Many of you are Indians. You basically were born and raised with some conception of Krishna. They didn't have any. Their first conception of Krishna was just months before. And they were sent to London. And I know what it was like in those days, because in 1970 I tried to come to London without money. And I was practically tortured, emotionally tortured for about 4 hours at the immigration. They were threatening to beat me. They were threatening to change the whole style of the way I looked. They were threatening to export me after this. They were threatening to put me in prison. I went across the English Channel from, I think, the Hook of Holland to Dover. Not friendly. And I wasn't even a devotee. I was just an ordinary type of a person who just didn't have much money. And they're coming as devotees without anything. How did they do it? Sleeping in cardboard boxes with newborn babies in the basements of warehouses, going to different people's house. They had no income. They didn't know what tomorrow would bring. And they're family people. They're all married. And we were only devotees for a few months. But Prabhupada gave them not only faith, but he gave them a sense of responsibility. That we can't wait for other people to do the will of God. Lord Srila Prabhupada saw an urgency to take responsibility to give this message to others. Because look at the world. Even in the name of religion, hatred, terrorism, war, hypocrisy. Prabhupada came to expose, to eliminate that from people's hearts. But as devotees, we're just as prone to it as anyone else. Unless we really, really hear what Srila Prabhupada and what Lord Chaitanya and Krishna are speaking. Srila Prabhupada gave one beautiful lecture where he explained that there are so many religious institutions in this world. They're doing their work. Some are doing miserable things, some are doing good things. There are so many philanthropic agencies. Some are just egoistic and looking for profit and tax write-offs, and others are actually concerned with helping people. He said, but the purpose of this movement is something that's not available in the world today. To teach the exclusive essence of life, which is unmotivated, unconditional, loving service to the Supreme Lord. As Srimad Bhagavatam teaches, the crest jewel of all scriptures. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught, who was the very personification of the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. When Prabhupada came to America, a reporter asked, "Why have you come? We already have our own religion." Prabhupada said, I have not come to convert you, I have come to enlighten you. We're not concerned with this religion or that religion. We are concerned with the essence, Sanatana Dharma. Savai pungshang paro dharmo yato bhaktir hopshiji. Ahvaita ki aprati hataya yatma suprasidati. The supreme occupation for all humanity is not being a Christian or a Muslim or a Hindu or a Jew or a Zoroastrian or a Buddhist or any of that. The supreme occupation for all humanity is unconditional, unmotivated, uninterrupted, loving, devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is what Prabhupada came to teach. It's a necessity. When the tsunami wave hit the shores of South India, Indonesia, Thailand, and some in Sri Lanka and other places, the whole world came together in a very amazing way to try to give relief for this tragedy, which is necessary. But from the point of view of God or Krishna, the tsunami wave, illusion, ignorance, has crashed upon the soils of this whole planet. And people are drowning in miserly existence. Their human lives are being wasted, washed away by the waves of lust and anger and envy and pride, and drowning in the ocean of illusion. It's horrible. So much suffering. Emotional suffering, mental suffering, physical suffering, social suffering. So much suffering in the name of God. People are murdering each other. Yes, Prabhupada came as a rescue worker, the supreme rescue worker. But it's not easy. You have to take responsibility, and he did that. And he inspired these few little grihastas to take responsibility and understand the necessity of this mission. And they did whatever was needful with integrity. And we see what those 6 little devotees began here is what all of us are benefiting and enjoying so much in our lives. So yes, this is the criteria of the future of any real institution is to the extent that leaders take responsibility. Social responsibilities, moral responsibilities, ethical responsibilities, philosophical and spiritual responsibilities. Srila Prabhupada said, purity is the force. He wanted devotees to work hard, to make sacrifices for the welfare of others, knowing that there's no greater way of receiving the blessings of Krishna. But to do this properly, and to be a proper leader, it has to be done in a spirit of servitude. Recently I was speaking to 2 wonderful devotees, and they asked, when we're in the limelight, how do we not get affected by false pride? I was just thinking of that word. Just think of it as it is. Limelight. Lime is a very bitter fruit. Is it not? It's very bitter. It's not sweet. It's not a mango light. It's a limelight. That means you're in the light, but it's bitter. It's an austerity. Right? When you just eat raw limes, sometimes you do it for your health, but it's an austerity, isn't it? Not too many people just enjoy just eating limes. Just eat one lime after another. Well, little juices, but just eat 10 limes. How many of you will enjoy it? It's bitter. We take the role of being in the light, but we understand the bitter consequences if we become proud. It's an austerity. We shouldn't enjoy it. We should do it as in a spirit of service. If we want to enjoy, we will sooner or later fall down. Or if we're taking any leadership position in a spirit of service and responsibility, then we will prosper. And we will be empowered individually and collectively. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that the prestige of this world, even if it is the prestige of being an advanced devotee, should be seen to have the value of the stool of a boar. Hare Krishna. Now we all know about hogs. Hogs eat stool. So their stool is the stool of regenerated stool. Yes? Therefore it's considered a very abominable form of stool. But amongst hogs, the boar is an outcast. Untouchable. Living in the jungles. Hare Krishna. So the prestige, the fame, the adoration of this world, if we want to really make spiritual advancement, we must see it having no more value than the excretion stool of boar. Hare Krishna. We'll move on to the next subject. And how, when we're in leadership position, we get praised. Sometimes. Of course, in ISKCON today, the more you're in leadership position, the more you get blamed. Not only for what you've done, what you haven't done, but what everybody else has done and hasn't done. It's a thankless task. But still, whatever little drops of adoration comes can pollute us. Unless we're really in that spirit of just taking the responsibility to serve on behalf of our superiors, on behalf of God and His devotees. And that sweet spirit of servitude toward God is the only thing that has any real value. Because there's nothing else that endures the powers of time. Life passes so fast. Recently I was with His Holiness Bhaktitirtha Swami Maharaj. One of his legs were amputated. His collarbone was cracked. He was emaciated. He had multiple tumors all over his entire body. He couldn't move. He needed 2 people to move him, even if he wanted to move a couple inches. He had no power to move by himself. And moving him was such a painful ordeal. but he had to keep being moved. And we know how independently active he was. He wasn't the type of person who wanted someone standing behind him doing things. He liked to do things himself. Dynamic, active, powerful. Such a young age of 55 to be in that condition. But yet we'd speak 2-3 hours about Krishna every day. And many things I can say. But sometimes he would just cry in ecstasy and shake his head. Say, amazing, how wonderful life is. I would not trade my position for anyone else in the world. How wonderful. How blessed Prabhupada has given us each other. He's given us the holy name. He's given us Hari Katha. He's given us the chance to live and to die for Krishna. How wonderful. He understood the value. The value of association of devotees, the value of the holy name of Krishna, the value of the chance to serve is hundreds and millions of times greater than wealth, good health, or anything else that this temporary world can ever give us. Could everyone hear? We know the story of Dhruva Maharaj. He was seeing his father in the royal domain of the palace. Little Dhruva, 4 or 5 years old. He was affected by leadership. Whatever position we have where other people are subordinate to us, we have great responsibility. Become affected. His father's life was full of opulence, full of power, full of prestige. He was also a devotee, but Dhruva Maharaj saw all of that and he wanted it. Because what a parent does, the children are deeply affected by that. And when he was insulted by his stepmother and informed that he had no chance of sitting on the throne of his father because he was not born of her womb, that little child's heart was mortified. It was crippled with pain. His lips were trembling. His eyes were weeping. He couldn't speak. He just ran to his mother. His mother could give him no help. I want a kingdom greater than my father's or even my grandfather's. So we know the story. His mother said only God can give. And you can find God in the forest. So with the help of Narada Muni, he chanted the names of Krishna, worshipped the deity of Krishna, and performed tapasya. And Vishnu came before him. Vishnu came before him within his heart. He saw the darshan of the Lord. And then that darshan manifested outside to be seen by his eyes. And Vishnu said, you have come here. I will give you anything you like. You want a kingdom greater than your father or grandfather? I will give. Dhruva said, no. I see no value to any of that. I see you. I was looking for a broken piece of glass. but by your grace I have found the rarest diamond, the most precious jewel of your darshan, of love for you. Purushartha Siromani, the crest jewel of all goals in life, is love of God. Economic development, sense gratification, liberation, religiosity. These are the goals that practically everyone in every religion is striving for. Dharma Projita Kaita Botra, but Srimad Bhagavatam kicks them all out. There's only one real goal. Love of God. Prema Pumarta Mahan. Krishna Prem. Dhruva had that. And oh, how much he valued it. It is true. People in this world, they can succeed materially, but find little real inner satisfaction. I will not mention names, but recently I was with one of them, with the child of one of the most famous people on the planet. So much prestige, so much power, so much money, but all alone. Any city they go, tens and thousands of people will spend hard-earned money to come to see them. But real friends, real satisfaction, not at all. It's sad. Very sad. It's bitter. You put your expectations that these things make you happy, you become so addicted to that expectation you can't give it up. But it just doesn't work. The cheap thrills of passionate desires of both the senses, the mind, and the ego will be satisfied, but they don't last. They don't touch the heart. What does the world need? Alexander the Great marched from Greece across the Middle East. Everywhere he went, he conquered. Alexander the Great. Why was he great? Because no man or woman could stand before him without ultimately having to submit to him. Anywhere he went, he would conquer that place and become king. Such power, such wealth. He came to India, and there's a story, he saw a yogi. The yogi just was wearing a kolpan. Alexander the Great is wearing royal robes, ornaments. This man was just wearing a little kolpan. He was just sitting on the ground, surrounded by fires, in the burning heat of the sun, in the summertime, at noon, in India. He was just sitting there, doing his meditation, chanting God's names in the sun, ferocious sun with fires around him. Alexander watched him for a while and thought, this man is incredible. This man is really an incredible personality. Such tolerance, such commitment to what he's doing. He was deeply moved by this person, by this yogi. So Alexander the Great stood right in front of him. Here's the king. The king. And here's a poverty-stricken yogi who doesn't have anything except the ground he's sitting on. And Alexander said, I am very impressed. I am very impressed by your life. I will give you anything you want. I am the king. You ask me. I will give you anything you want. I want to reward you for inspiring me the way you have. And the man just looked at him. And he said, you'll give me anything I want? Alexander said, anything I have the power to give you, I will give you. It is my word. He said, anything? Anything. The yogi said, all right, give me this. He said, move aside a few inches. You're blocking the sun. That's all you want? So that's all I want from you. I have everything else. He was shading him from the sun. He said, move aside. His austerity was his wealth. Alexander understood that this man has something more valuable than any of us. And it is a fact. It is that inner experience of self-realization, God consciousness. And that is what Prabhupada has come to give all of us. And when we ask Prabhupada, what can we do to repay you? He didn't ask anything for himself. His reply was, whatever I have given to you, give to others. But in order to do that properly, we must take responsibility. Very few people in this world are really willing to take responsibility for the ideals that they believe in. Why? Because it is difficult. It takes integrity, perseverance. The one who is willing to do that is a spiritual leader. And Srila Prabhupada didn't expect only sannyasis and initiating people to be spiritual leaders. Prabhupada gave the order that every single one of his followers, men, women, and children, should be spiritual leaders, leading by example, taking responsibility. And all of you in this room today are devotees who have stood out because you have taken sincere responsibility to help give this most precious gift to the world, to help give light in the age of darkness. Many of you have given much of your very hard-earned money. Many of you have given much of the very, very precious time of your life to help overcome problems, to deal with crises that are not at all enjoyable to deal with. Because you've taken responsibility. I thank you. I honor all of you for that act of greatness. A devotee is never satisfied that he or she has ever done enough, because there is too much sorrow and confusion in this world to be complacent. We want to take more responsibility so that we can all be individually and collectively empowered to be greater instruments of God's grace in our lives. responsibility that accesses the divine grace of the Lord comes through our hard work, our dedication, but also through our spiritual purity. Our spiritual purity is the very foundation that everything we do in our life is supported by. Thus, sadhana is of such great importance. Unless we take responsibility to purify our own lives, hearts, by sincere sadhana, hearing the glories of the Lord, reading the scriptures, chanting the holy names of the Lord, participating in japa, kirtan, bhajan, the association of devotees, making our home a temple. These acts of sadhana are foundational to our spiritual lives. They access to a spiritual power way, way beyond ourselves. This is a great responsibility. Sadhana purifies the heart. Sadhana connects us to Krishna internally. When Prabhupada gave initiation to devotees, he had them vow to chant the holy names, to follow regulative principles. Why? Why take these vows? Most gurus in this day and age, they don't bother having devotees take vows. Because who wants to take vows? It's much easier to just do some nice breathing exercise and feel good. And then tell everybody how good you feel and teach them how to feel good. Isn't that easier? Why? Why Prabhupada wanted us to take vows? Same reason we've been discussing. Because when you take a vow, what does that mean? You have increased responsibility. That's really what it's about. Increasing our responsibility. Because as we take responsibility, we make spiritual progress. Taking the vows is no big thing. Keeping the vows is a big thing. Yes? Anybody can take a vow. Who is it in this world that can't take a vow? Anyone. You can take that alcoholic in the street and ask him to vow to chant 16 rounds, follow the 4 regular principles, and we'll give you another bottle of wine. And he'll sit at the fire and take the vows. That doesn't mean much. There's only one purpose of taking vows, and that is for the purpose of keeping them. Which entails responsibility. It gives us a deeper sense of responsibility, and we need that. So sadhana is really about taking responsibility for purifying our own hearts. And we also have social responsibilities. Because if we want to actually reach out to people in a productive and effective way, we have to be united. We have to be united. There's so much disunity in the United Kingdom. What to speak of the United States? Soviet Union. Everyone talks about union and united. Yes? Because people want that. You can't really accomplish things without it. But how united is this kingdom? Today, Gauri Prabhu, Shruti Dharma Prabhu, Pranabandhu Prabhu, Madhava Prabhu were telling me how shocking it was to the British people that it was British-born citizens who were responsible for these tragic, senseless murders, killing their own countrymen, getting shelter from this nation, getting facilities from this nation, and then trying to destroy it. How united. It's crippling. So within ISKCON, Prabhupada was so strong in his emphasis of being united. And that unity on a superficial level means to not fight and criticize each other, which is hard enough to do. But beyond that, real unity is to actually share our ideals and respect each other. Respect everyone who is willing to do whatever they can do according to their position to be a part of the solution. That respect, that encouragement, and everyone trying to set a proper example creates real unity. United we stand, divided we fall. That was spoken by a great politician and quoted by Srila Prabhupada. United we stand, divided we fall. The nature of ego is we want to be individually outstanding. I think I mentioned this in a previous class here. But one of the greatest basketball players in history in America, he was in a game where he was about to score a point that would give him the world record for all time of scores in a single game, particular type of score. And there were seconds left in this game. And he had the ball. And it was a really easy shot for him. And he threw it to one of his teammates. And the teammate made the shot. And people were really disappointed. Because he could have made a world record. And he never had the chance in his career to ever make that again. Could have done it. So he was asked by interview, why did you do that? You could have easily thrown it in the basket. Why did you throw it to your teammate? He said, because when we're playing, we're not individuals, we're a team. We have to give up our individual ambitions for the sake of the purpose of the team. And yes, it was an easy shot for me to make, but my teammate was in a better position to make that shot. I would have likely made it, but he would have more likely made it. He said, I don't regret. Now this person is not a saint or a devotee. He's just an athlete. But the reason they had world champion team is because they put the purpose of their united efforts above all their individual ambitions. That's essential. So responsibility to maintain that unity, that communication, responsibility for one's own spiritual purity, and responsibility to do whatever God has blessed us to do, both in our intelligence, in our finances, in our skills, just taking responsibility on all levels to do what we can do to serve. That's all. Just for the purpose of serving the servants of the Lord. That is the greatest aspiration and greatest benediction. That is really what it is meant by simple living and high thinking. To have these high ideals and not concern ourselves with our own egoistic tendencies. I don't know what I was supposed to speak about tonight. I may have been out of line, but I prayed to Prabhupada give me something to speak, and somehow this came out. I thank you, because Great Britain is one of the most influential nations on this planet, and it has been for hundreds and hundreds of years, and it still is. And if we could make an impact on the people of this nation, it will be such a great offering. It would make our individual lives so deeply meaningful and beautiful. And we could also do what Lord Chaitanya called para upakar. Bharata bhumite hoila manusya janma jar janma sarataka kare kara para upakar. The greatest welfare work for humanity. Thank you very much. Is there any questions or comments? Corey Prabhu, would you like to give a presidential comment? Yes, Prabhu.
Take on responsibility. What question do you need to ask yourself? If you take on responsibility, what do you need to ask of yourself in terms of your qualifications, in terms of your quality, in terms of your ambitions, in terms of your suitability to take up responsibility? And what risks should you take because of relating people down to different questions and something else?
Did you all hear the question? Even I could hardly hear it. Would you like to speak it in microphone? No, microphone is coming.
Hare Krishna. Before you take up responsibility, what questions should you ask yourself about your qualities, about your qualification to take on the responsibility? And in particular, when you take on responsibility, you're effectively taking on risks that you might let other people down if you fail. So again, what level of risk should you take if you take on that responsibility?
Thank you. Very deep and thoughtful question. We should always have the dignity in our life to take responsibility for anything we do. It is the responsibility of every human being within a country to follow the laws of that nation. Yes? It is responsibility. We can't live without responsibility. But we have the free will to take, to follow or not follow. So in spiritual life, from the moment we develop some faith, from the moment we have a little faith in the association of devotees, to make progress, we need to take responsibilities. We may take responsibilities one step at a time, but we won't make much progress unless we take those responsibilities. Yes? We take responsibilities to start to come to the temple. As we become a little more advanced or serious, we take responsibility to start chanting. It may be 1 round a day. It may be, then we try 2 rounds a day, 4. We take responsibility for living by moral principles, following the regulative principles, knowing that if I don't, there will be karmic sinful reactions, and if I do, then I'm pleasing Krishna, and I'll make progress. And then when we take particular types of service, it may be little service. It may be bringing a bag of rice once a month to the temple. But if we take responsibility to do that, it will have so much more of a powerful effect. And as we become more sincere, we take more and more responsibility. So at every step, whatever we do, we should be responsible for doing it and doing it right. Yes? And really, one of the signs of our becoming more serious is to the extent that we're willing to take more responsibility. And the fact is, people have to do it. Otherwise, religion will die in this world, real religion. Our movement will not survive unless people are willing to take responsibility. Every year in Mayapur, I sit at the GBC meetings. It's not, I don't know if you've heard so much, it's not that it's a joyous occasion. Many of the topics we have to deal with and struggle with. Very few people want to be in that position. But people have to come forward to do it. And they're willing to take that responsibility. There are gurus in this movement who don't want to be gurus. Tremendous risk, tremendous hardship. It's not that being a guru just means that wherever you go, people throw flowers on your head and give you donations. And Mahaprasad. Sometimes you get some flowers on your head. Sometimes you get donations, but you're not even allowed to keep it. And if you do, the whole GVC's on top of you. You have to send in your, what is it called? Your accounts. But so many problems. Yes, people may love you, but also along with that love comes the responsibility for their lives. And not everyone's a Paramhamsa. So many people have so many so many problems, and you take an emotional and a spiritual and a social responsibility to help them. It's a massive burden. There are many people who really don't want to do that. It's so much easier just chant Hare Krishna without any responsibility. Somebody has to do it. People do have to do it. And they're doing it simply, they're even taking those risks for that purpose. I personally, in my own life, I never wanted to take sannyas. When my authority went to Mayapur and put my name up to the GBC and they unanimously voted on me, and no one even asked me if I wanted to do it. It was all voted. I was just happy as a brahmachari, preaching in the colleges, traveling around, free. I was taking responsibility for the students and everything, but I was happy. I came to New Vrindavan one day, and everyone was offering obeisances to me, which nobody ever did before. I really felt miserable. I was offering obeisances to everybody, and they were saying, "You shouldn't do that, Maharaj." What are you talking about, Maharaj? What is this? They said, GBC have voted you to take sannyas. I said, there's no way, there's no possibility. I will not, absolutely. And I started studying scriptures just to get quotes and verses to support my not taking sannyas. And I studied well, too, because I was very motivated. I did not want that responsibility. And meanwhile, the leader was in India, and he came back some weeks later and brought me in. And so the whole assembly of about 25 or 30 of the leaders of the community, and they were all programmed before I came to convince me I must take sannyas. So I had so many scriptures and so many quotes and so many historical references. I was prepared. But there was a problem. Nobody listened to me. But there was a bigger problem. I wouldn't listen to them either. It became a battle. Everyone against me. But I was determined. And it went on for months. And finally, one day, I was told by my GBC that whatever you're saying all has, scriptural and emotional and personal sense, but still you have to do it. I said, I'm not going to do it. I am not going to take sannyas. And then this person, because I was a brahmachari. Before that I was a sadhu in Himalayas and Vrindavan. So I just have a certain nature. He said, all right, then if you don't take sannyas, then you have to get married. I said, I don't want to get married. But if it's one or another, I'll get married. And he said, no, you will not get married. It's out of the question. You will take sannyas. So his strategy didn't work. So then the battle continued. I just, leave me alone. I used to say, just leave me alone. Just let me do what I'm doing. Why? But they wouldn't leave me alone. And finally one day, the GBC said that Prabhupada took so many risks and made so many sacrifices to give you Krishna consciousness. Now he's speaking through them at the unanimous voice of the GBC, and the unanimous voice of all the leaders of the community. Prabhupada is speaking to you. He's asking you to take risk and make sacrifice to help him in his mission. What has he risked and what sacrifice he has taken for you? Now he's asking you to reciprocate. How can you refuse? What would you say to that? After he put it that way, I was wishing I was on the banks of Prayag. But I wasn't. So I said, I cannot say no when you put it like that. But I will tell you, whatever I said in the past is what I believe now. I do not want to do this. I don't want honor. I don't want prestige. I don't want this responsibility. Just let me go on as I am. That's what I want. However, if you put it like this, I have no heart to say no. You decide. And instantly, then you will take sannyas. He said, when? I said, in 10 years. He said, no, this year. I said, I was trying to think the farthest date from me. I said, well, next Gaur Purnima. He said, no, it's too late. Well, Prabhupada's disappear and say, no, that's too late. I said, well, you decide. He said, Nrsimha Dev's appearance day. That was the closest festival. So in Krishna consciousness, if we really want to do something for humanity, we have to take risks. It's just a matter of how much we want to do something. Look at the risks Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati made. Look at the risks that the Christian preachers took. They were all martyred in the beginning days. Even in business, people who really are powerful and great in business are usually people who take serious risks and make serious sacrifices. Yes? You just have to do that. So if we're really concerned with the welfare of the world, which Krishna is, then some of us have to step forward and take certain risks and take responsibility to do it properly. Does that answer your question? I gave a personal example. I'm sorry about that, but
do you step forward to take leadership, or do you wait for people who know or senior to you to ask you to take the responsibility to take the leadership role?
It is the Vaishnava mentality to step forward to take leadership in our enthusiasm and in our willingness to serve. We shouldn't step forward to take political leadership. That should be awarded by the Vaishnava community. It's not that we should be ambitious for authority. We should be ambitious for service. We should be ambitious and enthusiastic for that service and do the best possible service we can. Yes, we should step forward. And if devotees recognize that our service would best be carried out if we had position, then we'll take the austerity of having that position for the sake of serving the Vaishnavas and performing our service. So yes, we should step forward for service, but position is something that should be received with humility as a service to the Vaishnavas. Is there any other questions? Any presidential comments here? Yes, Sanidai Prabhu.
Thank you very much for encouraging me. You mentioned some may experience when we take responsibility, we have to make decisions, and we take responsibility for future of people's lives spiritually. Sometimes we may make mistakes, or we may make decisions that have serious impact on others. Maybe you could give us some advice how we continue even when we have to make such strong decisions.
We should be very careful. As far as we should really cultivate our own bhakti so that we have a pure consciousness, a pure mind, and a pure heart to make such decisions. Because in spiritual circles, the decisions we make are not simply managerial, because they're deeply affecting the hearts of people. Even management in Krishna consciousness is only really expert when it's empowered by the grace of God. Yes? And that empowerment comes from the purity of our heart, the purity of our purpose. If you are in a responsible position where other people's hearts and lives are being affected by us, then how we should take shelter of the holy name for their sake. Even if we've given up the possibility that we could go back to Godhead in this life, we should take shelter of the holy name and take shelter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and take shelter of serving Vaishnavas, just so that we can do justice to our service to these devotees. Yes. And that's one of the great things about being a leader, in the sense everyone should be a leader. Even the new bhakta should be a leader by leading by example. Being a leader doesn't mean authority over others. As we have said, if the assembled Vaishnavas want us to have authority over others, then we'll do it as a service, not as an authority, but as a servant. Now, if you're given a position like that, it's tremendously beneficial for spiritual progress, because we have such a heavy sense of responsibility to say the right thing, to do the right thing. And we have such a heavy sense of responsibility to purify our hearts so that we'll actually uplift and not discourage the devotees. Yes? And Prabhupada would put people in those positions because he knew if we're serious to take the proper sense of responsibility in that position, we will grow like we would have never grown before. Yes? Because there's the need to. But there's also the risk of making offenses and falling down. We have to be very, very careful to purify our hearts, to be very tolerant, to be very forgiving, to really take inventory of our own motivations. And we also should always be seeking blessings and guidance of senior devotees, and willing to accept that, receive that, and act on that. If we're always humble, seeking blessings, we'll always be protected. Does that answer your question? Is there any other questions? Shruti Dharma Prabhu, would you like to speak something?
We would like to thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
But your heart doesn't have a bottom. Your heart is unlimited.
Question of anxiety is there, Lord. People are also fighting to take responsibility. Because there's so much anxiety involved, they see that those that have taken responsibilities are pulling out their hair, so there's not much to pull anymore. So anxiety sometimes is...
If you shave your head, no one will ever know.
It seems there's a lot of anxiety in management or taking up any leadership role, even if looking after one person. Anxiety seems to... And individuals somehow have a principle that perhaps they're looking for a peaceful life.
Shruti Dharma Prabhu, if anyone knows, it's you. Pranabandhu Prabhu, Shruti Dharma Prabhu, what have they gone through taking responsibility for all of you over these years? It's unbelievable. It's very difficult to calculate. They could have easily just peacefully chanted their rounds and just stand on the sides as they're watching everything go by. Over the years since they've been here, the amount of crises and tragedies and leaders falling down and disappointing people, and people pull away. They don't want to be a part of being leaderships in a situation like that. It's painful. And government court cases, legal battles, financial crises. I mean, who wants to step forward in situations like that? They're not living in palaces and getting great financial benefits. Nobody's throwing flowers on their heads. Bricks. They're throwing bricks on their heads. Why? Because taking responsibility is an expression of love. And accepting anxieties for a higher purpose is an expression of love. And taking anxiety as an expression of love is a deeper gratification than Om Shanti Shanti Om. The higher principle in peace is love. In Srimad Bhagavatam, do we read about Mother Yashoda being in peace? She was always in anxiety. Yes? Why does a mother want to have a child? Having children is so much anxiety, isn't it? Isn't it easier not to have children? You don't have to get pregnant and just your body gets all out of shape and there's this creature living inside of you. I can't imagine what that feels like. And then, the whole labor of having the child. It's very painful, isn't it, mothers? I don't know, but I've heard. From what ladies tell me is while they're having a child, mothers almost always say, I'll never, ever, ever do this again. But then they do it. Because after they have the child, then so much anxiety. This little baby, right? A little helpless thing, totally dependent on you. And then the baby's sick. And your anxiety is sick. gets all diseases and your anxiety about the diseases. And then it's crying and your anxiety about crying. You can't sleep, it's trying not sleep. And then milk, it needs milk, and sometimes you're not able to give proper milk and your anxiety. And then the child starts crawling and you're always in anxiety that it's going to hurt itself. Yes? Mother Yashoda was always in anxiety. Will Krishna get scratched by the monkeys or bitten by the dogs, or will he crawl on the thorns? So how many of you here are mothers? Raise your hands. Now I'm speaking theoretically. But then, babyhood and then childhood and so many anxieties. What to speak of they're going to become teenagers. How many of you have experienced anxiety when your children became teenagers? Now, is your anxieties decreasing or increasing as your children grow? Huh? Sounds like a kirtan. Everyone said increasing. So everybody knows before they have a child that there's going to be ever-increasing anxieties. So why do parents want to have children? What is the answer? Arasa. Speaking like a true brahmachari. You can strike that from the record. Because it's a way of expressing love. And there's a deep inner experience in expressing love, even though it's full of anxiety. Is that clear? So when we're in our Guru's movement, Krishna's movement, yes, taking responsibility is anxiety. Being a parent is a responsibility for anxiety. But it's a way of showing love. A necessary way of showing love. And because that anxiety is an expression of love, it's actually an ecstasy for the heart. And it gives ecstasy to Krishna. Our anxieties give ecstasy to Krishna when it is done as an expression of love. And a devotee's goal in life is to give ecstasy to Krishna. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimati Radharani was saying that whatever gives pleasure to Krishna is my only happiness. If my suffering gives pleasure to Krishna, that is my greatest happiness. If Krishna wants to be with another lady, even if it breaks my heart in millions of pieces, I will go and I will serve that lady as her menial servant to convince her to bring her to Krishna, if that's what will give Krishna happiness. That's selfless devotion. Thakur Bhakti Vinod, in that spirit of Srimati Radhika, has said that the anxieties and the disturbances and the sufferings I endure in serving Krishna are my greatest happiness. Because it gives Krishna happiness. If you water the root of the tree, we are satisfied. Our souls are satisfied. So yes, to do anything great in this world, especially in the spiritual movement, anxieties are there. But if they are taken as an expression of love, it's the most wonderful thing. Those anxieties should not be seen as a burden. Those anxieties should be seen as a blessing, as an honor. To be willing to assume anxieties for Krishna's mission is an honor that is causelessly bestowed upon us and that we don't deserve. And we should be grateful. Does that answer your question? Gauri Prabhu, anything?
I think it's important to just try to sincerely work with other devotees. The devotees have the confidence in you. I think it's important to sincerely work with the other devotees, and if the devotees have the confidence in us to perform more responsible tasks, and they're keenly interested that we do that, I think to serve them in that capacity will engender their conscientious blessings upon us, and we'll just grow and grow. I think we all feel lack of confidence and we are incapable of being responsible, but I think if we have faith in the judgment of mature elder devotees, then it's a very proper way to live our lives. I think the term's Vaishnava Nagatya, which means if the devotees want me to sing and I sing, then it's a very good activity of devotional service. If the devotees want me to do something, they make a request of me, a command of me, and I can fulfill that, and that's the perfection of my life. So I think if we're open to that, then we can build a movement on steady and responsible people. Otherwise it's very difficult. If everyone's just ducking and diving and trying to avoid responsibility, then how can we run anything? We don't have a future. That's all.
Most perfectly eloquent in your explanation. Thank you. That is the essence. To be balanced. One extreme is I don't want to be in anxiety. I see what happens to people who take responsibility, and I'm just going to be on the sidelines saying Hari Bol. That's one extreme. The other extreme is I want to be in charge. Nobody can do it as good as I could. So by hook, by crook, by any means, I will take power, I will take position, and if people don't want me in this position, then I'll fight tooth and nail till the end of time. Hare Krishna. No. If we have to take responsibilities, we have to be eager to serve, we have to be eager just to be a society of being with one another and helping one another and working together to serve the compassionate mission of Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya. And if devotees want me to be in a position of authority and they're giving me their blessings, it's an austerity. I don't want position or authority, but if that's how devotees want me to serve, I'll do it. And I'll do it with responsibility, with integrity. And if the devotees don't want me in that position anymore, I'm not the slightest bit attached. I'm just attached to serving. Devotees should not be attached to position. We should simply be attached to service. That is what Gauri Das Prabhu has taught us today. Thank you. That's what it's about. Krishna consciousness, being the humble servant of the servant. Who are we to speak? I mean, in my own case, I only went to one semester of a junior college. What education do I have? I just left college and went to the Himalayas. And I was always so quiet, so shy. I never spoke. Only to my close friends I would speak. Otherwise, I was very quiet. In fact, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was telling me when he was young, he was so quiet. He was so shy. He had speech defects, so he was afraid to speak. But it was the will of others that he do so. So here I am. I don't have any money. I don't have anything. I have no education. I have no charisma. I have a horrible voice. But I'm in Bombay speaking to PhDs and professors and wealthy people and all, and they asked me to speak. I'm shameless. You ask me, I'll tell you what I know. I'm your servant. What else can I do? What is our qualification? How could we think we're qualified to repeat Krishna's message? Even if you have 10 PhDs, you have no qualification to speak Krishna's message. It's so high and it's so holy. To lead a kirtan, that's such a high and holy position. We take it for granted. But to lead kirtan, to actually be leading other people, inspiring other people, actually leading the way in other people to perform the Yuga Dharma, that is such an incredibly exalted position. We take it lightly, but if we think about it, we're practically shameless to do it. To speak the Bhagavatam, what Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur considered that he was not even qualified to speak on. What Rupa Goswami considered he wasn't qualified to speak on. What Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu considered he wasn't qualified to speak on. And we're speaking Srimad Bhagavatam classes. What's happening? No, we're not qualified. What is our qualification? It's the order of our Guru to lead kirtan, to speak Bhagavatam. It's the will of the Vaishnavas. So we do it. To be a pujari, to be personally dressing Radharani and Krishna. Think about it. Isn't that an exalted position? In Goloka Vrindavan, who personally dresses Radha and Krishna together? Even Yashoda doesn't do that, right? To dress Radha and Krishna together, it's something those intimate Sakis do. To be bathing them together, to be dressing them together, to be feeding them together. What is our qualification for doing that? Cooking for Krishna? Radharani is Krishna's cook. Yashoda is Krishna's cook. Not anybody cooks for Krishna. And we're cooking for Krishna and Radharani. What is our qualification? I'm sorry to tell you this, but we have absolutely no qualifications for anything we do in this movement. Everything we do, leading a kirtan, giving a class, washing Krishna's pots, these are such exalted positions that the most liberated people in the spiritual world exclusively have these services. Serving prasad in Mahaprabhu's Leela, Swarup Damodar Goswami, Jagadananda Pandit, Damodar Pandit. These were the people who were serving the prasad. These are the most intimate gopis of Braj, Lalita Saki, serving. We have no qualification. We have 1,000 PhDs. It's not a qualification to do this. Our only qualification is the blessings of Guru and the Vaishnavas, They're asking us to do it. So we're enthusiastic to do it and to do it right. And because we're doing it with the blessings of Guru and Krishna and the Vaishnavas, that is our only qualification, and there's no others. So how can we become proud if we understand in that context? Does that make sense? That's what devotional service is about. What Gauri Prabhu has said. Just try to work together to serve Guru and the Vaishnavas. In whatever role the devotees want us to take, Guru and Vaishnavas want us to take, we're willing to take it. Simply to serve. And it is their blessing that is our only qualification. If the devotees want Madhava Prabhu to lead Kirtan, then he's absolutely qualified to lead Kirtan because of the blessings of the devotees. He may think, who am I? There's so many exalted people here. There's sannyasis here. There's GBCs here. I'm just a little guy from the mountains of Switzerland. Who am I to sing and lead the Yuga Dharma in front of hundreds of people when there's people so much more exalted and advanced than me here? He may be thinking that way. What's his qualification? He's absolutely fully qualified because he's simply honoring, respecting, and serving the will of the Vaishnavas. And that blessing empowers us. Without that blessing, it's just our own egos doing work. But when we have that blessings and we accept those blessings with humility, then the power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead can manifest and make us little puppets in His hands. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Radha Landanishwara ki jai. Shri Radha Gokulanand ki jai. Ananti Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Go Premanandi. Thank you very much.